Hi everyone. Welcome back. We're glad to have you with us today. Let's start. My name is Jake, and let me tell you, things have taken a crazy turn in my life lately. I am 34 years old, just a regular guy working as a warehouse supervisor here in Indianapolis. Nothing about my life was extraordinary, but it was steady. I had a decent job, a comfortable home, and I was married to Emily. We had been together for 5 years and married for 3. In my mind, things are going just fine. Sure, we were not one of those picture-perfect couples you see in movies, but we had a rhythm that worked for us. The bills got paid. We had date nights here and there, and the occasional argument was just part of the deal. At least, that was what I thought. Then about 6 months ago, Emily took a sudden interest in fitness. It came out of the blue, but I supported it. She joined one of those fancy gyms downtown that looked more like a wellness spa than a place to lift weights. She even hired a personal trainer named Travis and became obsessed with meal plans, protein shakes, and detox routines. At first, I thought it was just another phase, like the time she got into painting or that short-lived yoga obsession. I did my part to make things easier for her. I picked up more chores, took care of errands, and handled the laundry so she could focus on her new lifestyle. I figured it was a nice way to show I cared. But over time, things started to shift in a way that I never saw coming. The more weight Emily lost, the bigger her ego seemed to get. She would spend hours in front of the mirror, adjusting her gym outfits, and taking endless photos to post online. It stopped being about her feeling good and turned into her putting on a show for social media. I remember one Friday night, I suggested we watch a movie together, just to unwind like we used to. She barely looked at me before saying, "Jake, I do not have time to sit around. I have goals to crush." Goals? I had no clue what she was talking about. She was not training for a marathon or climbing Mount Everest, just hitting the gym and drinking green juice. But whatever, I let it slide, thinking maybe I was the one being unreasonable. Then came the morning everything flipped upside down. It started like any other day. I was half awake, sipping my coffee before work. Emily was in her usual workout gear, downing her kale smoothie while scrolling through her phone like her life depended on it. Out of nowhere, she said, "I deserve more out of life." Still groggy, I mumbled, "More of what?" She set her glass down and looked me straight in the eye. "This marriage is holding me back. I am filing for divorce." I thought she had to be joking, so I chuckled a little. But there was no laughter from her side. Her expression was cold, dead serious. That was when it hit me. She was not kidding. "I have outgrown this," she said flatly, like I was some old piece of furniture she was ready to toss out. I sat there in shock. The woman I had built a life with just dropped a bombshell on me like it was no big deal. My mind was racing, a mix of disbelief and anger bubbling inside. "What do you mean, you've outgrown this?" I asked, trying to wrap my head around what she was saying. She sighed like I was some clueless kid. "I've been working on myself, Jake. I am trying to become the best version of me in this life." She waved her hand around the room. "It does not match my potential anymore. I need more than this house, this routine, this you." Her words cut deep. She did not even try to soften the blow. To her, I was the problem. The life we had built together was suddenly not good enough for her. Without another word, she grabbed her gym bag and left. No goodbye, no second glance. I was left sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her half-finished green smoothie, trying to make sense of what had just happened. That day at work was a blur. I went through the motions, but my head was stuck on Emily. Was this really happening? Was she actually leaving me? Sure, we had our arguments like any couple, but divorce? It felt so out of the blue, so calculated. The way she spoke made it clear she had been planning this for a while. Over the next few days, the reality of our crumbling marriage became impossible to ignore. Emily barely spoke to me unless it was about splitting up our belongings or scheduling mediation. She was always out late, claiming she was at the gym or spending time with friends. Her phone became an extension of her hand, and her Instagram feed was filled with selfies and captions like "New Chapter," "Who This," and "Living My Best Life." Each post felt like a slap in the face, a public announcement that she had already moved on mentally, even though the divorce papers were not even finalized. One night I scrolled through my own social media, and something hit me hard. She had deleted every picture of us. Wedding photos, anniversary posts gone. It was like she was erasing me from her life, one post at a time. She had scrubbed me out of her life as if I had never existed. Meanwhile, her social media was blowing up with likes and comments. People were writing things like, "You look amazing," and "such an inspiration." Every single one of those comments made my stomach turn. None of these people had a clue about the real Emily or what she was putting me through. One evening, while I was getting ready for work, I overheard her talking on the phone in the kitchen. Her voice had that fake, sweet tone she used when she wanted to impress someone. "I just feel so liberated," she said, letting out a light giggle. "I am finally doing what makes me happy." Then came the dagger. He does not even understand. He is stuck in the past. That was the moment it hit me. Emily was not just walking out on me. She was reinventing herself. And I was the dead weight she was cutting loose. But here's the thing about me. I am not the kind of guy who just rolls over and lets someone walk all over him. If Emily thought she could steamroll me and walk away with everything, she was about to get a reality check. Things were only getting started. One afternoon, I was grabbing lunch at a cafe near my job, minding my own business, scrolling through my phone when I caught part of a conversation between two guys at the next table. They were talking about some hot fitness chick they had found online. I did not pay much attention at first, but then I heard one of them mention a name, Emily. My heart dropped. I listened in as they laughed, saying she was promoting premium content online. There is no way that is my Emily, I thought. But then one of them pulled up her Instagram, and sure enough, there she was, my wife. They were talking about how she was hinting at launching an OnlyFans account, with links in her bio, saying things like, "for the real workouts." I could feel my blood boiling. When I got home that evening, she was on the couch, scrolling through her phone as if nothing was wrong. I stood there for a moment, trying to stay calm. "Emily," I said, my voice steady, "what is this OnlyFans stuff I am hearing about?" She looked up at me, completely unfazed. "It is my body, Jake. My choice. And honestly, it is none of your business anymore." Her nerve left me speechless. None of my business? We were still married, and she was out there selling herself online while I was trying to keep things together. I could barely hold back my frustration. "We are not even divorced yet," I said. "And you think it is okay to do this?" She rolled her eyes, as if I were some out-of-touch dinosaur. "It is not like that. It is content creation. Everybody is doing it. Besides, you are not paying my bills anymore." That was the moment it truly clicked for me. Emily did not just want a divorce. She wanted an entirely new life. In her new story, she was the star, and I was just a supporting character she had outgrown. Over the following weeks, her behavior became even more outrageous. She started dressing like she was heading to a reality show audition. Tight dresses, sky-high heels, makeup so thick it looked like frosting on a cake. Every time she left the house, it was like she was off to a red carpet event, not a quick run to the grocery store. In her social media captions, they went from bad to worse. Stuff like, "living my truth," and "no more holding back," made me want to smash my phone. But the one that really got to me? She is not a wife anymore. She is a force of nature. The audacity. While Emily was out there playing celebrity, I was stuck dealing with the mess she left behind, lawyers, paperwork, dividing up assets. But Emily was not as untouchable as she thought. My lawyer, Adam, who was an absolute legend, started digging around. Turns out, Emily had been seeing someone on the side. And not just anyone, a guy with a gym membership. I bet you can guess who it was. Travis, her personal trainer. The second I heard his name, I knew exactly what was going on. This was no innocent trainer-client relationship. Travis was the type of guy you would expect to see on some trashy dating show. Perfect tan, bulging muscles, and a charm that was about as shallow as a kiddie pool. Emily did not even bother hiding their connection. One day, she came home practically glowing. "Travis says I am the strongest I have ever been," she bragged without even looking at me. Yeah, I bet he did. And I am sure he also told her she was the most unique woman he had ever trained. It was all part of his routine. A few weeks later, she stopped pretending it was just about fitness. She started casually dropping his name into conversations. "Travis is taking me to this new vegan place," or "Travis recommended this amazing protein powder." It was clear as day. She was flaunting him like some prize she had won. Friends started texting me about sightings of them around town, holding hands, laughing, playing the picture-perfect couple for social media. Then one evening, She walked right in and announced it without a hint of shame. "Just so you know, Travis and I are dating now," she said like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Yeah, no kidding," I thought to myself. But here's the thing, Travis was not just some fitness coach. He was a predator. Adam, my lawyer, did some digging, and it turns out Travis had a pattern. This was not his first rodeo. He had a history of charming married women, making them feel like they were the center of the universe, convincing them to leave their husbands. And then, once the dust settled and the money dried up, he would vanish. And Emily? She fell for hook, line, and sinker. Meanwhile, I was standing there thinking, do I look like I care? But Emily was not just casually mentioning his name. She was parading him around like some kind of trophy. Word spread quickly, and soon friends were texting me about seeing Emily and Tyler all over town. They were holding hands, laughing, and posing like they were auditioning for Couple of the Year on Instagram. Emily did not even bother to keep it private. One evening, she came home, tossed her gym bag on the floor, and with that same smug attitude said, "Just so you know, Tyler and I are together now. It is time you accept that." Oh, I accepted it, all right. I accepted that my wife had become the textbook definition of entitlement. Mentally, she had checked out of our marriage long before this. So what did it matter if she added a public affair to her list of achievements? The more I found out about Tyler, the angrier I got. He was not just some gym bro who stumbled into this situation. My lawyer, Adam, who absolutely deserved a medal by this point, did some digging. And guess what? Tyler had done this before. Twice, actually. It was a pattern. Find a married woman, give her endless compliments, make her feel like she was finally being seen, and then encourage her to leave her husband. But once the dust settled and the money stopped rolling in, he would pull a disappearing act, leaving them high and dry. Tyler was not looking for love. He was running a con. He would boost their egos, make them feel like they could conquer the world, and ride that wave for as long as it benefited him. And Emily? She was the perfect target. She craved attention and validation the way a plant craves sunlight. Tyler had her wrapped around his finger, and she was too blind to notice. What really got under my skin was how arrogant he was about the whole thing. Mutual acquaintances told me Tyler was already bragging about their plans. Once the divorce is finalized, he said, "Emily and I are going to build an empire." An empire? Seriously? The guy was a personal trainer, not a Silicon Valley entrepreneur. But sure, dream big, buddy. Tyler was not just after Emily's money, though. He was counting on mine, too. Emily was demanding half of my savings, spousal support, and even trying to take the house. She thought she could strut into court, cry a little, and walk out with a golden ticket to fund her and Tyler's new life. What she did not know was that Adam had every receipt. There was no way I was going to let her walk all over me. Let me paint you a picture of Emily and Tyler as a couple. Picture a guy who only owns tank tops, standing next to a woman who suddenly believes she is a Kardashian. They filled social media with photos, posing in front of cars they did not own, dining at fancy restaurants I am sure Emily paid for. They were trying so hard to send a message. Look at us, we are winning. But to anyone with half a brain, it was obvious they were trying to cover up their own insecurities. Their relationship was not as flawless as they made it seem, though. Tyler's over-the-top personality started clashing with Emily's growing diva complex. One night, I overheard her on the phone, arguing with someone. "I do not care what your ex has said about you, Tyler. You are with me now, and I deserve better than your baggage." I did not catch the rest of the conversation, but it was enough to make it clear that their perfect little fantasy was already cracking at the seams. As angry as it made me, there was a twisted satisfaction in watching Emily throw everything into Tyler. She saw him as her golden ticket to a better life. But it was only a matter of time before the whole thing came crashing down, and I was going to make sure of it. Fast forward to mediation day. Emily walked in with her head held high, acting like she owned the room. She looked like a celebrity about to give a press conference. But by the time she walked out, she looked like a deer caught in headlights. It was priceless. Tyler, ever the supportive boyfriend, trailed behind her, sulking and scrolling through his phone. That was my first sign that their empire was not as rock solid as they wanted everyone to believe. Let us backtrack a bit. Mediation was not just a setback for Emily. It was a complete disaster. She had this idea that she could waltz in, shed a few tears, and walk out with the house, half my savings, and spousal support. Her lawyer painted this picture of her as a devoted wife who had given up everything for my mediocre dreams. Mediocre dreams? You mean the years I spent busting my back at the warehouse to make sure we had a roof over our heads? Adam, my lawyer, was prepared. He showed up with spreadsheets, bank statements, and screenshots that told a very different story. Emily had been draining our joint account for months before she even filed for divorce. We are talking about luxury spa days, designer shopping sprees, and $200 dinners, all while I was stuck eating leftovers. Adam made sure the court saw every dollar she wasted. Then came the real kicker, Tyler's skeletons. Adam laid it all out. Tyler's history of sweet-talking married women, his habit of disappearing once the money dried up, and his predictable hustle. But the cherry on top? Adam found messages from one of Tyler's exes, warning Emily to be careful. Of course, Emily did not listen. She thought she was different. She thought she was special. Tyler's cocky smirk faded fast during the court session. He sat there looking uncomfortable, probably realizing his little game was unraveling. Emily tried to defend him, saying Tyler was not like that anymore, but the evidence was too strong. The judge was not buying their act. By the end, it was obvious Emily would not be walking away with the fortune she thought she would get. Tyler, on the other hand, already looked like he was planning his next move. After mediation, Emily's confidence took a hit. The smugness she wore like a badge was gone. She kept posting her motivational nonsense on social media, but it started sounding more desperate. Instead of living my best life, her captions shifted to things like, growth is hard but worth it. Sure, Emily, keep telling yourself that. As for Tyler, he was still around, but less present in Emily's life than she made it seem. Their couple-goal appearances at fancy restaurants and gym selfies disappeared. Word got around that Tyler was already flirting with a younger client who, from what I heard, did not come with Emily's baggage. Classic Tyler. One night, Emily came home late. I was still living in the house because, legally, I could not kick her out yet. She walked in looking drained, dropped her designer bag on the counter, and let out a dramatic sigh, clearly hoping I would ask what was wrong. I just stayed on the couch, silent. Eventually, I went to my room without a word. The next morning, Emily tried to act normal, whipping up one of her kale smoothies. Tyler's been busy with clients, she said out of nowhere. I did not take the bait. She wanted me to ask about him, but I was not giving her that satisfaction. A week later, the real drama kicked off. I got a call from Adam, my lawyer. Emily had filed some last-minute paperwork, trying to claim more assets. She wanted emotional compensation for the stress I caused her during our marriage. Yes, you heard that right. Emily thought she could squeeze more money out of me by blaming me for her midlife crisis. The audacity. Adam, being the legend that he is, had already prepared for her antics. He filed a countersuit, showing how Emily drained our accounts and manipulated the situation for her own benefit. He even included her Instagram posts as evidence. Her captions alone, things like new chapter, who this, were golden proof she was not some victim, but a self-absorbed diva living her best life at my expense. Around that time, Tyler vanished completely. He stopped showing up to their gym sessions, stopped answering her calls, and even blocked her on Instagram. Yes, he blocked Emily. She was pacing around the house, calling him repeatedly. Tyler, call me back. We need to talk. She sounded desperate, and I will not lie, it was satisfying to witness. Eventually, one of her friends spilled the truth. Tyler had moved on to another client, someone younger, flashier, and, most importantly, not caught in a messy divorce. Emily was devastated. She tried to play it cool, posting cryptic quotes like, sometimes people are not who they seem, and you cannot build an empire with someone who plays games. But it was obvious to everyone what had happened. Her perfect man had bailed as soon as things got tough. That was when Emily's facade really started to crack. She stopped going to the gym, swapped her stylish outfits for sweats and messy buns, and even went quiet on social media. It was like her whole identity had been tied to Tyler, and without him, she did not know who she was. One evening, she tried to talk to me. She stood in the doorway of the living room, looking hesitant. Jake, she said softly, I think we need to reevaluate everything. This divorce has been hard on both of us. I just stared at her, waiting for the punchline. "What are you getting at, Emily?" I finally asked. She sighed dramatically, like she was trying to win an Oscar. "I just think maybe we rushed into all this. We had good times, didn't we?" I almost laughed. "Emily, you filed for divorce. You told me I was holding you back. And now that Tyler is gone, you are having second thoughts? Seriously?" She tried to play the sympathy card, talking about how lonely she was and how much she had sacrificed for our marriage. But I was not falling for it. I cut her off. "You made your bed, Emily. Now lie in it." Emily's little fantasy world was crumbling, and I did not even have to lift a finger. Karma was taking care of everything for me. Now let me walk you through how the courtroom showdown went down, and why Emily probably wishes she had never set foot in there. When the court date finally rolled around, Emily did not make her usual dramatic entrance. There was no designer blazer, no confident smirk. She walked in with her lawyer, both of them looking like kids headed to detention. She had to know things were not going to go her way. The energy in the room felt different, and to be honest, I was enjoying every second of it. On the other side of the courtroom sat me and Adam, my lawyer. He came in with a binder so thick it could have been used as a doorstop. By that point, I was not nervous anymore. I had already taken every hit Emily had thrown my way, and I was still standing. Today was about more than surviving. I was here to win. Emily's lawyer kicked things off by presenting her emotional compensation claim. He spun this whole story about how she was a long-suffering wife, emotionally drained by my supposed lack of support for her personal growth. Apparently, my refusal to back her fitness journey, which, let us be real, was really her affair with Tyler, somehow equated to neglect. Adam let him ramble on, giving him enough rope to hang himself. Once the lawyer had dug himself into a nice, deep hole, it was our turn. Adam stood up and calmly began dismantling their entire case. He presented evidence showing that not only had I supported Emily's goals, but I had gone above and beyond to help her through her so-called transformation. He pulled out text messages where I offered to make her healthy meals, encouraged her gym sessions, and even suggested we take couples fitness classes to strengthen our bond. Then Adam dropped the bombshell. He made it crystal clear that Emily's emotional compensation claim was not just weak. It was a blatant attempt to hide her own emotional neglect toward me. He presented emails and text messages where Emily openly mocked me to her friends, calling me boring and dead weight. There were even screenshots of her bragging about Tyler, saying I was her backup plan until she could move on. The courtroom was silent except for Adam's steady voice as he laid out the facts. Then came the financial side of things, and that was when the real damage was done. Adam presented bank statements showing how Emily had siphoned off thousands of dollars from our joint account to fund her luxury lifestyle. We are talking about spa days, designer shopping sprees, expensive dinners, all paid for with money she had no right to take. Emily's lawyer tried to object, mumbling something about context, but Adam was not done. He had one more ace up his sleeve. He pulled out a journal entry that Emily had written, the one Adam had subpoenaed. It was all there, in her own words. She had outlined her entire plan to leave me, take as much money as she could from the marriage, and start fresh with Tyler. The judge's expression hardened as he flipped through the pages of the journal. His stern face grew even more intense with each entry he read. Emily sat beside her lawyer, visibly tense. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped nervously on the table, a far cry from the confident woman who had once strutted into mediation. Her confidence had completely evaporated. On my side of the room, I sat with Adam, feeling a mix of anticipation and satisfaction. This was it. This was the moment when all the lies Emily had worked so hard to build would come crashing down. The judge finally addressed Emily's emotional compensation claim. "Mrs. Thompson," he began, his voice calm but firm, "your request for emotional compensation lacks any substantive evidence." He paused to let the words sink in before continuing. "While emotional distress can be a valid claim, this court requires clear and demonstrable proof. Your claims, however, are based solely on subjective feelings, not facts." Then he turned his attention to Adam's counterarguments. The judge went over the text messages, bank statements, and social media posts Adam had presented, painting a completely different picture from the sob story Emily and her lawyer had tried to sell. "Mr. Thompson," the judge said, addressing me for the first time, You have demonstrated a clear and consistent pattern of support for your wife throughout the marriage. The evidence shows no indication of emotional neglect. In fact, it suggests the opposite. You went above and beyond to accommodate her needs and aspirations. Emily's lawyer tried to jump in, stammering about how the evidence was taken out of context, but the judge shut him down with a raised hand. The context is perfectly clear, the judge said sharply. Counselor, let us move on. The judge raised his hand, cutting off Emily's lawyer mid-sentence. The context is clear. Counselor, let us move on. Next, he turned to the financial side of the case. His tone grew colder as he addressed Emily. Mrs. Thompson, you withdrew over $223,000 from joint accounts in the months leading up to this divorce filing. These funds were not used for household expenses. Instead, they were spent on luxury goods, fine dining, and personal indulgences. Emily's face turned beet red as she shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Her lawyer tried to explain it away as a coping mechanism during a difficult time, but the judge cut him off again. Coping mechanisms do not excuse financial irresponsibility, he stated flatly. Then came the house. Emily argued she was entitled to half, claiming emotional contributions. Adam was ready with documents proving I had covered the mortgage, renovations, and upkeep on my own. The judge did not hesitate. The house will remain the sole property of Mr. Thompson. Mrs. Thompson, you have no financial claim to it. Emily's jaw dropped. Her lawyer leaned in to whisper something, but she waved him off, too stunned to speak. The judge continued, ordering Emily to reimburse me for unauthorized use of marital funds, $23,750. The courtroom went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Emily's lawyer slumped in his chair, while she sat frozen, as if the reality of the situation had finally hit her. Her carefully crafted victim narrative had completely unraveled. The judge gave his final statement. This court is adjourned. Relief washed over me. For the first time in months, I could breathe again. Adam patted me on the back. We did it, he said with a satisfied nod. I nodded back, grateful for his work. He had exposed Emily's lies for what they were. As we left the courtroom, I glanced back. Emily stood there, staring blankly at the floor. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of pity, but it vanished quickly. She made this mess. Now she was dealing with the fallout. In the weeks that followed, the fallout became impossible to ignore. Emily was ordered to vacate the house in 30 days. She tried to stall, claiming she needed more time, but I was not having it. You had plenty of time to prepare while you were flaunting your affair with Tyler, I reminded her. Grudgingly, she packed her things and left. Watching her drive off that final day, loading her designer bags into an old car a friend had lent her, was surprisingly satisfying. No dramatique. Just silence. Without access to my money, Emily's financial situation tanked. She tried selling her designer clothes and handbags, but it barely made a dent. Word spread that she was borrowing money from friends, but even they grew tired of her sob stories. And Tyler? He ghosted. Stopped showing up to their gym sessions. Stopped returning her calls. Even blocked her on Instagram. Yes, blocked her. Emily, who once acted like she had it all figured out, was now pacing the house, leaving desperate voicemails. Tyler, call me back. We need to talk, she pleaded. One of her friends eventually spilled the truth. Tyler had moved on to someone younger and less complicated. Emily was devastated. She tried to keep up appearances online, posting cryptic quotes like, "You cannot build an empire with someone playing games." But everyone saw through it. Her perfect man had bailed when things got tough. She stopped going to the gym, swapped her designer outfits for sweats, and even went silent on social media. It was like her entire identity had been tied to Tyler. Without him, she was lost. About 2 weeks after the court ruling, she showed up at my door unannounced. Her once polished appearance was gone. Her hair was a mess, her eyes tired. "Jake," she said softly, her voice cracking. "Can we talk?" I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. "What do you want, Emily?" She hesitated, wringing her hands. I wanted to say I am sorry. For everything. I made mistakes, big ones. I let Tyler manipulate me. I got caught up in this fantasy, and I ruined everything. Emily's voice cracked as she spoke. Her words felt rehearsed, like she had practiced them in front of a mirror, but the desperation in her eyes was real. This was not genuine remorse. She was here because she had nowhere else to turn. I crossed my arms and looked at her steadily. "I do not know what you expect me to say," I replied, keeping my voice calm but firm. "You made your choices. You chose Tyler. You chose to try and take everything from me. And now you are dealing with the fallout." Tears welled up in her eyes. I cannot. Can we at least be civil? Maybe start over? "I have nothing, Jake. I am lost." I stared at her for a long moment, feeling nothing but resolve. "Emily, I gave you everything. My support, my trust, my love, and you threw it all away. You do not get to come back now and ask for a second chance. That is not how this works." Her shoulders sagged as she broke down, sobbing right there on my porch. But I did not flinch. After a moment, I turned and stepped back inside, shutting the door behind me, leaving her outside with her regrets. Since that day, I have moved on. It is strange how life twists in ways you never expect. After everything with Emily, I figured she would fade into obscurity, a casualty of her own poor choices. I thought her story was done. But one night, as I sat at home scrolling through social media, something caught my eye. A headline, bold and brash: "Emily Thompson, from heartbreak to internet sensation." My first instinct was to scroll past it. Probably just clickbait. But curiosity got the better of me. What I saw stunned me. Emily had completely reinvented herself. She was not just dabbling in fitness content anymore. She had gone all in, becoming one of the biggest names in the adult film industry. Her face was plastered across websites and magazine covers. The woman who used to obsess over appearances and social status was now flaunting it all in the most public way possible. Emily had always been beautiful, sure, but the confident, unapologetic persona she was now projecting? It was a far cry from the woman I used to know. I barely recognized her. But that was not the real shocker. The real surprise? Tyler was back in her life. And he was not lurking in the background this time. He was her manager. Yes, Tyler. The guy who wrecked my marriage, the one who helped her tear apart our life together, was now handling her contracts, building her brand, and making her the face of what they called a rising empire. It felt like a punch to the gut. The man who had once sweet-talked Emily into betraying me was now profiting off her new career. It seemed like a sick joke, but there was no punchline. This was their reality. Emily had found a new path, one that led to fame and fortune. And, oddly enough, she seemed fulfilled. She had reinvented herself in a way I never saw coming. It is funny how the universe balances things out, though. Tyler finally got what he had wanted all along. He had Emily, but not in the way either of them had probably imagined. The irony was not lost on me. He had manipulated her into leaving me, and now he was managing her career as she put herself out there for the entire world to see. I would be lying if I said it did not sting a little. Seeing Emily thrive, especially with Tyler by her side, was not easy to digest. It was hard to reconcile the woman I had once loved with the person she had become. But then I reminded myself of the truth. She made her choices. She built this life for herself. Just like she chose to destroy what we had, she chose to create this new persona. She made her bed. Now she was lying in it, literally and figuratively. For a brief moment, I found myself scrolling through her OnlyFans page. It was one of those fleeting, stupid decisions. Curiosity got the better of me. What I saw only confirmed what I already knew. Emily had fully embraced her new role as the star, the center of attention. She was selling not just her image, but her entire identity as a product. It was all about control, her control over how the world saw her now. And Tyler? He was right there alongside her, making sure everything ran smoothly. It hit me then. They were both exactly where they wanted to be, and I had no place in that world. Emily was selling more than just her body. She was selling herself. Her identity, her entire existence, had become a product to be consumed. Seeing the woman I once loved turn herself into a commodity was hard to process. But what struck me most was how shameless she seemed about it. There was no hint of regret, no trace of the person she used to be. And Tyler? Seeing him right there beside her, helping to build her new life, made me feel like I was trapped in a nightmare I had already lived through once. It brought back memories of betrayal, heartbreak, and the wreckage they left behind. But I was not the same man anymore. I had been through hell and back, and I was stronger for it. I reminded myself of that. I had moved on. I had built a new life for myself, one that did not include either of them. The twisted story they were living no longer had any hold over me. Their choices, their empire of fame and attention, had no power over my peace of mind. Sure, Emily might be famous now. She might have wealth and recognition, but none of it mattered to me anymore. Her success was built on a foundation of lies and manipulation, and it was not my problem. Still, I would be lying if I said seeing her thrive with Tyler by her side did not sting. It felt like one last slap in the face from a past I was still trying to leave behind. But this time, I did not let it drag me down. I was done letting their actions define my life. I had peace of mind now, and that was something neither fame nor fortune could buy. Emily and Tyler could have their little empire, their shallow success. But me? I had something far more valuable: freedom. Freedom from the chaos, freedom from the manipulation, and freedom from a life I no longer recognized. They could chase the spotlight all they wanted. I was happy to live in the quiet calm of my own life, far away from their twisted version of success. That peace? It was worth more than anything they could ever have. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you soon.